Complex trauma results in the limbic brain being in control. And the limbic brain, when it's in control in a dangerous environment, begins over time to pull me in a negative, harmful direction. The limbic brain, so you got your main parts of your brain stem, which controls your organs and all your involuntary functions. Then the child brain, the emotional center of the brain, the survival part of the brain is the limbic brain. It's where you feel emotions. So when you're in danger, fear, and that kicks in, fight, flight, that's all your limbic brain. And that's the brain that the child has. And then the mature part of the brain, the cortex, that's the thinking part of the brain that's able to process what is healthy, think in terms of long term, whereas the limbic brain only thinks in terms of immediate results. How do I get instant gratification, instant safety? It isn't concerned about long-term consequences. It's just concerned about now. So a child gradually in a healthy home moves from their limbic brain, because that's all they have, to use more and more of their cortex until they get to mature adult life where they still listen to their limbic brain, but their cortex is their executive. It manages things. It thinks things through. It receives information from the emotions, and the limbic brain processes them, decides what to listen to, decides what's the best course of action in light of what's healthy and what light of what's long term. But in complex trauma, you're in danger all the time. And so you're in your limbic brain all the time. So a child who's in complex trauma for years and years and years, they're not growing into their cortex. They're staying in a limbic brain that is firing all the time, that is the boss, that is in the driver's seat. The cortex, yeah, they're learning to think a little bit, but it isn't the executive. So they don't think long term. They still think now. Instant safety, instant gratification. So let me expand on this just a little bit more. A child in a healthy home where they're safe and connected, their limbic brain, it is a very wonderful, positive influence in their life. It really does two things for them. Number one, it adds to the beauty and fullness of life. So when you listen to music, watch a sunset, see the mountains, you're filled with these warm emotions. When you get a hug from somebody, when you connect with somebody, warm emotions that just fill out and make life even more meaningful. But the limbic brain is also a protective part of the brain, so that if you're in situations all of a sudden, you're normally in a healthy, safe environment, but you go into a dangerous environment, you feel fear. And then that creates the instinct to fight or flight. You need to get out of here. You need to get to safety. It is designed to protect you. It pulls you towards healthy steps to protect yourself. You need to talk this through. You need to stand up for yourself here. You need to express your needs in this situation. You need to be really vulnerable here. It pulls you in a healthy direction. But in complex trauma, a child will initially, when they're in danger, they will try to be vulnerable. They will try to stand up for themselves. They will try to talk it through. But what happens? They get punished for it. It leads to more pain. It leads to more hurt. And so the limbic brain goes, okay, that was the wrong solution. I need to now pull them in a different direction. So now they need to isolate. They need to lie. They need to fawn. They need to get angry and hurt others back. They need to suppress their needs, not talk about their needs. So the child does that. That seems to work. Then the brain goes, okay, that's the right way to go in life. Every time I feel in danger, I will now pull you to lie, manipulate, isolate, hurt, suppress your needs, fawn, that's the right way to go. Do you realize that that gave instant safety and gratification, but 20, 30 years later, lying, not expressing your needs, fawning, manipulating, destroys relationships. The long-term consequences are going to be even more painful. But the limbic brain doesn't care about the long-term consequences. It cares about safety now. But what's happened in that brain is the limbic brain, not only is it in power for years and years and years, and the cortex doesn't develop, but secondly, the limbic brain becomes altered. Now it doesn't pull you in a healthy direction. It pulls you in a self-destructive, harmful direction. It pulls you towards those old survival patterns. And so the challenge for many people in recovery is they start to learn to live in their cortex. And more their cortex is the executive of their brain. And they get better and better at it, which is the goal of recovery. But once in a while, when they go through very intense emotions and their limbic brain gets triggered, it just moves into the driver's seat, kicks the cortex out, and says, we're going back to old patterns. And that becomes very challenging for people in recovery. So let me take this limbic brain a little bit farther. The next characteristic of complex trauma is that people continue to live typically instant gratification focus. They continue to live out of that limbic brain. And so what will make me feel good right now? I don't want to think long-term consequences. I just want to feel good now. So again, what I want you to see is when a child is in complex trauma and all of this danger, they're being abused, neglected, abandoned, most of their emotions are negative. They cannot resolve those emotions. They try to fix the things that are causing those negative emotions, but they can't. And so they got this snowballing, growing, painful emotions in their life. Their limbic brain not only wants to protect them, their limbic brain wants to have a little bit of positive feeling. Their limbic brain wants an escape from all that pain and get a little bit of pleasure now. And so the priority more and more in the limbic brain is when you get a chance to feel good, grab it. Because most of your life is going to be feeling bad. And their whole priority becomes instant gratification. With that comes the next one, and that is they are impulsive. So when an opportunity to feel good comes, grab it. Don't think about it. Act before you think. Because if you think about it too much, you might turn down the opportunity. So don't play the tape to the end. Grab what comes your way impulsively. So again, many people in recovery, as they begin to live out of their cortex, they begin to handle those impulses well. They don't give in to those impulses. They think them through. They think through the consequences, and they don't give in to those impulses. What they have to be aware of is when they get a really strong emotion, painful emotion, then their impulsivity gets even worse. But they also have to be aware of when they get a really strong, good emotion. They feel on top of the world. They feel wonderful. Then they can get really impulsive too, because they're totally in their limbic brain. They're totally into instant gratification, the limbic brain's focus. So just be aware in recovery of very intense negative emotions, but also very intense positive emotions. The next thing that comes out of this limbic brain dilemma is that people from complex trauma tend to be great starters, poor finishers. So somebody has said the best people to hire for a job are people with complex trauma for the first couple of weeks. Because in the first couple of weeks, man, they are going to be on top of that job. They are going to be doing the very best job because that job is exciting. That job is giving them a rush. That job's got them back in their sympathetic nervous system. And then it's going to start to feel boring. Then it's going to start to be the same thing every day. It's going to require consistency and discipline. There's going to be some parts of the job that they don't like. And there's going to be people that they work with that get on their nerves. And all of a sudden, they quit. They don't want to do this anymore. Sadly, so many people with complex trauma have started hundreds and thousands of projects. I've had some clients who've never finished one. They've never finished one thing in their life. And our LIFT program has been the very first thing that they've finished in their life. And that is because the limbic brain has so much power. And it basically says, unless I'm feeling good all the time, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I'm going to do something as long as it's exciting. As soon as it's not exciting, I'm done. And I'm quitting. What I want you to know is there's hope. I'm pointing all of these things out to you so that you can begin to realize I can heal from this. I can change this. This does not have to be my narrative forever. I wasn't the start of the problems. I wasn't the cause of the problems, but I'm the only one that can now solve the problems and change the problems.